Hello, hello. I'm recording this on Sunday, the 20th of November, and in 3 days' time, it will have been 5 whole years since I released the first episode of Russophiles Unite. Let me play you a short clip from that episode in which I explain the origin story to this show. A little while back, I recorded an episode of the podcast Classic Schmassic as a guest. They were very kind to have me on, and I had so much fun doing it that I thought I would like to have my own film podcast. So, to mark the 5th anniversary of this podcast, I thought it would be fun to take you to where it all began and share that Classic Schmassic episode in which I joined Chris Mead and Owen Choules to discuss Sergei Eisenstein's Battleship Potemkin and whether it lives up to its reputation. I'll be back afterwards to let you know where you can find more of Chris and Owen's work and to let you know how you can support what I've been doing with Russophiles Unite over the years. Okay, here's the Classic Schmassic episode.
You are listening to Classic Schmassic with Chris and Owen.
Well, here we are, back once again. I'm Owen Choules, and with me today, as always, is...
Christopher. That's my name. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much. Once again, I always feel it's very nice to pour out a bit of gratitude on you, our listeners, for downloading another episode of Classic Schmassic and spending some time with us. We appreciate it. It's very nice to have ears with which to communicate.
Yeah, very eloquently put.
Yeah, and people attach to those ears with brains that can take in the signals, audio signals, and then process them, pass them in some way, and have an opinion.
So what
That's
you're saying
very
is,
nice.
Thanks, dear listener.
For being human.
Yes. And this show is all about watching, apparently, the best films of all time and seeing if they're really as good as everyone says they are.
Yeah.
And they're old as well.
They are old.
If you think like the latest Adam Sandler film is the best one of all time, we're probably not going to be covering that.
No, in fact, I don't think we've ever said this, but all of the films that we cover have been made before we were born.
Yep.
Yes, and we were born in the 80s.
In 1980.
Yeah, we were.
I feel like we've talked far too long without bringing to everyone's attention the fact that this episode, we have a guest.
Hello.
Yes. Hello, Alistair. Is Alistair your best mode of address?
That's fine. Ali.
Okay.
I like Ali.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Slightly more wieldy.
Yes, right. Is wieldy a word?
It is now.
Good stuff, because it used to be unwieldy. So.
Yeah.
Ali, we know each other because you listen to the podcast.
Yes.
So this is a bit of a thing where kind of culture is eating itself in a way.
Indeed.
In that you wouldn't be here if we didn't do the podcast.
Nope.
But if we didn't do the podcast, you wouldn't be a listener.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I do want to say I'm concerned now that this is going to open the floodgates to every Tom, Dick and Harry that thinks, oh, I fancy having a go at that.
Yeah, we're going to have literally 3 or 4 emails flooding in.
Yeah.
And we will probably say, yeah.
Well,
yeah, why not?
We'll tell you what, I'll deliberately be really, really terrible so that you'll just go, nah, bad idea, we'll never do this again.
See, what's good now is that if you are terrible, you can say that was on purpose.
It was all part of the plan. Yeah, that's the one.
Good. Now that we've established
Yes.
plausible deniability,
Indeed.
would you like to tell us and our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I'm interested in all things Russian, most things Russian anyway. So I write a blog, and I also contributed, I don't know if you're language people, you might have used Duolingo to help you learn a language.
I have heard of it.
Yeah. Well, I contributed to the building of the Russian course because it's always good to have a native English speaker on one of these things. And it's slightly harder to find native English speakers who also speak Russian. Russians who speak English, there's quite a lot of them. The other way around, less so. So I helped with making the English sentences sound, natural. Colloquial-ish, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've always wondered about that. And I was in the Pyrenees, so it's a Catalan country.
Okay.
And a lot of menus have got that thing where there's an English version.
Okay.
But any native English speaker who would just peruse that, even just very casually, would be able to pick up just a number of, would it be like syntax and stuff, just the way that they
Stuff
arrange
that's
words?
off. Yeah. Well, yeah, depending on how well it's edited. I remember one menu where it looked fantastic, and then we got to eggs. Instead of saying eggs, it said eggsy. Like, I is often like the Russian letter that denotes a plural.
Right.
So they'd obviously done eggs and then just
Stuck the plural on
stuck
it.
the Russian plural. So you kind of had Latin letters and then this one random Russian letter at the end.
How do you like your eggs in the
Oi.
morning? I like mine quite eggsy.
Very good. With
Yeah.
the plural.
Yeah, so it's
suffix.
doubly pluraled.
I mean, I would say eggy,
Eggy,
probably.
yeah.
Eggy eggs. But eggsy. it's fine.
Eggsy.
Sounds a bit like a sort of outlaw graffiti artist.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Like-
true. My granddad used to tell a story about language that I always
Hmm.
found quite funny, in that he was driving in France and he got a puncture, got a nail
Oh, yeah.
in his tyre, and he managed to get to a garage, and he went up, looked up what
Yeah.
nail was, went up and said, "I've got a nail in my tyre," and everyone started laughing at him.
It was a fingernail,
was
wasn't
a
it?
fingernail.
Yeah.
But it's just so interesting to me because in our language, that nail and the other nail are intrinsically linked because
Yeah.
they share the word. But in any other
Why
language,
wouldn't they be
yeah,
linked?
they're not linked.
But why would they,
Hmm.
on the other hand?
Really
Yeah.
crazy. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know how that stuff happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, very cool. I'm absolutely in
Mm-hmm.
awe of you. I think I probably said this on Ginny's episode, but anyone who has any kind of facility at languages
Hmm.
makes. I mean, you have a superpower. You can talk to people that I can't talk to. I think that's amazing. Really, and I can't do it at all. I have no facility for languages.
I think what's interesting, if you speak another language as well, it introduces you to new concepts.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, because, English is not a perfect language, so we can't express everything. Yeah. And just the things that we encounter in, our particular version of the world, it's not as broad as other places. I mean, yeah, sure, we've got things that other places don't have, but yeah.
And the way we construct our language
Yeah.
then affects how we think,
Sure.
how we tell stories, how we conceptualize the world around us.
Yeah.
Is it true? I've heard from people who are fluent. You are presumably fluent.
Semi-fluent, yeah. I can get by. I'm a bit rusty.
That you're a different version of yourself when you're speaking and thinking in that language, just slightly. But there's
Yeah, I think perhaps my degree of fluency is not such that there's really that big divide, but certainly I've met much more. I don't even necessarily want to say able linguists, but people who started much earlier, and they definitely say, "Oh yeah, I feel totally different." And once I got to the level where I could actually understand them in both languages, I was going, "Oh yeah, that is actually true. That isn't just something that they're saying because it's a truism."
See, I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
That much in the same way as we have different facets of
Yeah.
ourselves that we like to portray to different,
Oh,
like,
yeah,
to your mum
absolutely.
as
Yeah,
opposed
yeah.
to your best friend or whatever. The same happens with the language. I think that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Well, and different people bring out different aspects of yourself. So yeah, there might be sort of like a version of you, say, that when you're with Owen, that maybe somebody else that doesn't necessarily elicit. This isn't an original thought, but I've read it
Yeah.
and kind of gone, oh yeah, that is interesting.
I do think that is
Yeah.
just bonkers, to be
Yeah.
honest. And I guess as we've spent so long talking about Russia, and I guess the reason why
Yeah.
we are going to tackle a Russian film today.
So we're going to be watching Battleship Potemkin, which is a film from the 1920s.
Can we all try and say that name properly?
Battleship Potemkin.
Battleship Potemkin.
Battleship Potemkin.
Tovarich. No.
Potemkin.
You brought some more Russian in there.
Potemkin.
Potemkin.
Schmassic.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent
So
stuff.
what is battleship in Russian?
I'll probably butcher the pronunciation, but Broninosits
Okay, I'll leave that one with you.
Broninosits.
Oh, very nice.
Potemkin.
This is good. We never get to pronounce the name over and over again.
We can use an English language teaching technique. So we can start with the last syllable. Okay. So it's just siets.
Siets.
Yes.
Nosiets.
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 Broninosits.
Broninosiets.
Broninosits.
You're doing so well.
I can't do it.
Broninos-
Remember when I said I had no facility at languages? It's true. I was not just fronting.
Yes. Minute-by-Minute Potemkin.
So it's actual modesty as opposed to the false kind.
Yes, that's absolutely
I
true.
can't do the nice rolling R's like I feel like Christopher can.
I totally... you can do... I've heard you do that on the podcast before. I only say that because I can't actually properly do it. I can kind of imply it when it's in a word. But if you just kind of say, oh yeah, do a roll down. No, can't do it.
It's just because I watched a lot of Sylvester McCoy as Doctor.
Oh,
as the Doctor.
okay.
He
All
always
right.
rolls his R's. Awesome. So 1920s film. What else do you know? We'll let you go
What
first.
else do I know about it? I know it was directed by Sergei Eisenstein, or Eisenstein, if I'm trying to be a little bit more authentic to the Russian pronunciation. And I don't know, he seems to be quite a big deal director. I mean, he's, there's streets named after him, and there's a monorail station named after the street. So, he's important enough that they've thought it worth naming places after him.
I was born on Paul W. Anderson Street.
Okay.
It was named after the director of Resident Evil.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was born in Mukherjee Close.
Oh,
really?
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, is that near Uwe Boll Lane?
Did you say Uwe Ball?
Is it not Uwe Boll?
I think it's Uwe.
Uwe Boll. Awesome. Sorry, I had a stupid joke and I put you off your stride.
No, that's
Keep
fine.
going.
The other thing is, weirdly, I have seen Eisenstein's grave, but I haven't seen any of his films, which seems like that's a wrong way round.
I mean, there's many directors you can't even see their grave if you wanted to.
But isn't it amazing that we're going to help you remedy that?
Yes, yeah, and that will be... I just need to say I didn't spend most of my time in Russia hanging around in graveyards. I went to one once.
Sure.
It had lots of very... I'm this weird Russian goth. Not that being a goth is a problem, but...
No,
yeah.
some of my favourite people are goths, in fact.
Yeah. And we don't want to perpetuate the stereotype that they hang around in graveyards
No, of
all
course.
the time.
Sometimes they're at goth clubs.
Yeah.
For instance, that's another place.
Yes.
Or cathedrals.
Gothic cathedrals.
Gothic cathedrals.
Or just, I don't know.
Morrison's.
Morrison's,
Yeah, or
because they've got to
Morrison's.
eat.
Yeah.
Goths have got to eat like everyone.
Goths gotta eat.
If you cut them, do they not bleed? They do.
Black blood.
No. Oh, man. I know something about this film that I would like to share. I believe it invented the technique of montage.
I don't know. They might have done.
I have heard something like that.
Yeah.
I
think it was
images together, one after the other, to tell an extended story that hadn't really been used before. Something like that.
I'm not sure if it invented it, but I think it was to do with Eisenstein's theory of how it could be used.
Yeah.
Owen knows more. Let's go to him.
I think that this is a propaganda movie. It's probably a safe bet to say.
that is a very safe bet. In 1920s, they don't let you make a film unless, at least in some way, it's saying Soviet power is great.
Yeah.
Aren't we happy that we won the Civil War? Right, guys? Yes.
And
yes, we are.
apparently so.
I'm going to put my stupid hat on and just say, what? Could you give me a bit of historical background?
Yeah, I could try.
Thank you.
So the Russian Civil War it's kind of like you have the Russians are involved in World War One. It does not go well for them.
Sure.
And sort of the big powers that went into the war, they were one of the less well prepared, and the strains of war just put additional strains on a society that wasn't particularly happy anyway. And long story short, it contributes to the Tsars, who are kind of like the monarchs of Russia, but not very constitutional ones. People deciding, yeah, we're sick of you, you can't run this very well, so we're getting rid of you. So that's 1917, and there are some people who are not very happy about the Tsar going. Some people want to continue being a Tsarist, so Civil War.
Okay.
That's just my historical summary.
I mean, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
That was excellent. Thank you so much.
And
for that.
you kind of come out of the Civil War somewhere around like 1922 or so.
And they're all like, okay, no more wars for us.
No more wars for us. That's bad.
Yeah.
It's based on a true story
Yep.
where the ship's crew mutinied,
Yep.
I think.
Okay. I also know that there is a baby carriage
Yes.
falling down some steps.
Like the Untouchables.
Like the Untouchables. Yeah. But presumably the Untouchables got that from Battleship Potemkin.
Brilliant. Please never correct him. I want to hear him say it.
Oh, I'm so scared.
So is that everything we know at this point?
Yeah.
Oh, there's one thing that's worth mentioning is it's not from the from 1917 revolution. It's actually from 1905, which was a year where there were kind of lots of revolts, including one of the sort of the armed forces. Partly because Russia had just lost or was in the process of losing the Russo-Japanese War. So
the film set in 1905.
1905, yeah. So it's kind of looking back on it from already in 1920, mid-1920s, some distance.
So this was a period piece even then?
Even then, yeah, I guess so, yeah.
We haven't said, but it's a silent film too.
It is.
Yeah, because it's a 20s film, but I just thought we should throw that out there as well.
Which I have never seen a full silent film all the way through, I don't think. Actually, hearing a couple of your previous episodes made me go and actually look up on YouTube some Buster Keaton and some... I was about to say Marx Brothers, but that wasn't silent. But the mirror scene is silent, so that still counts.
I'll lend you the general if you want.
Oh, that would be very kind of you.
I feel like you need to see it.
Yeah, I saw kind of one of the big train sequence. I guess it was one of the big ones, but certainly the one you described on the episode of kind of flinging the bits of wood. I was just like, wow,
it's amazing.
I am expecting you to get run over any minute.
I think if you're wanting to introduce yourself or somebody else to silent film, it's a brilliant film to use for that purpose. Yeah.
So I'm excited on that score. I'm a bit nervous because on the other hand, it's kind of like, oh, am I going to watch this and have to say, yeah, so this classic film, supposedly, that you all like Russians, not very good. Which will make me sad because I like their stuff to be good.
It's okay. I'm sure they're not.
And they're very proud of... No, they probably aren't, so yeah.
Actually, some of your Russian friends might listen to this.
They might, yeah. I actually did a little bit of a straw poll before, doing a preparation, just to kind of find out who of you have actually seen this, because this is a really old film. So, you know, if we were watching a British silent film from the 1920s, you can safely assume... not many people would have seen it, but I thought, I'm not going to safely assume, I'm going to actually find out. So I did a very unrepresentative sample. And it was kind of, I don't know, probably about a third of people had seen it or seen bits of it, but, you know, usually quite a long time ago. One person saw it when they were 12 because they were forced to in class and just went, nope, never want to see that again. It was awful. But others just kind of... but then silent film's probably a hard sell when you're 12.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So okay then. So I feel like you should feel pretty okay about being honest about it. It seems like even the Russians are not 100% on it.
Yeah. And that's what we're doing here, isn't it? All these films that we are openly mocked about for not seeing, particularly by Russians. Our network head, Malcolm Nygaard. He seems to love pointing out the fact that we're idiots for not having seen these films.
Yeah.
But if we had, we wouldn't have a podcast, would we?
Well, a few years' time, we will have seen more classic films than most people.
We'd be doing podcasts about Batman versus Superman or something like that.
Yeah, that classic.
I'd be interested to know, after having seen this, how many times we have to go, Ali, I didn't get that bit. Can you shed any light on this? Just culturally.
Yeah,
you know, but we'll see. It could be none.
I probably will have to say, no. I guess that will be a measure of how good the storytelling is.
That's it.
Yeah.
And as well as bringing us Battleship Potemkin.
Say it again, Chris.
Battleship Potemkin.
That was probably the most confidently you've done it.
Thank you, but not accurately.
You did sort of mispronounce Battleship somehow.
Battleship Potemkin.
I think what's happened is you've lost your command of English. Now you've switched to Russian.
So hard on the Russian word.
On that foreign syllable, which we wouldn't use ourselves.
Chom.
I can't believe we've got this far and I haven't done a really insensitive Russian accent. That's
good. I was impressed. Yeah. not that I was specifically suspecting it was going to be you, Owen, but just in general. Yeah. Your best sort of Borat-esque. Accents now, please.
Oh, okay.
No, not actually.
No,
that's a bad
I really wasn't going to do it. Yeah. It probably will happen at some point.
Eventually, Law of averages. The longer this goes,
I normally like to bring them out when Chris is halfway saying something really insightful.
Sort of puncture the
Pomposity.
That's
the
why I stopped. I didn't want to say something like pomposity.
Battleship pretentiousness.
Can I do a Swedish accent?
Please do.
You sunk my battleship. Except that's more like...
That
Just thought I'd
sounded
reference
Transylvanian.
back. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant.
But
Bill and
I'm
Ted
being
reference.
deaf, which is more, kind of slightly vampiric, perhaps. I don't know.
So along with
Yes,
this wonderful film, no, I was
potentially wonderful film. Yeah,
Potemkinly,
Potemkinly wonderful film. Aha.
you have also brought us some lovely Russian treats, which is very kind of you.
Again, lovely is. We'll see.
Would you like to talk us through them?
Yes, so we've got some chocolate, which is called what is it even? Babayevsky chocolate, which is nice, dark chocolate, and then we have some Beryozovy sok. So some birch juice. They have lots of birch trees.
Yes,
and,
the famous birch juice of Russia.
Yep.
I've always wanted to try it.
Yep. And some tarhun, which I don't think is specifically Russian. I think I Wikipedia'd it and it was Georgian, but it's, we're watching a Soviet film. Georgia was in the Soviet Union, so that can... And they drink it in Russia.
And what flavour?
What flavour? Oh, it's tarragon flavour.
Oh, yes, tarragonade.
Yes, tarragonade. I wouldn't know what tarragon... if you just put a bunch of spices and went, taste that one, it's probably going to be a herb as well. I wouldn't go, oh, yeah, that's tarragon.
But it is a fizzy drink,
it's
right?
It's a fizzy drink.
So it's going to be...
Luminous green.
It's going to be tarragon in the same way that Tango is orange. Yeah.
Yeah, if we're honest. Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid at school, we were read... I can't remember which one, but it was a wishing chair book.
Okay.
And in that book, they went underground and some munchkin or fairy or something made the children some strawberry shortcake and strawberry aid. Okay. And that was at a point where you basically had orangeade, limeade, Coca-Cola and
cherryade,
lemonade. I don't think you had cherryade. Maybe from Happy Shopper.
Okay.
But that blew my mind. I was like, strawberry aid. I cannot even conceive of such a thing. If I went back in time and spoke to that 7-year-old Owen Choules and said, one day you're going to be drinking tarragonade, I don't think my mind could have coped with it. It was a bit like, in those films, like in Back to the Future, where you're not allowed to see yourself, otherwise you will faint. I think something like that would happen.
Only if you're non-vital to the plot does that happen.
Yeah. Marty, don't mention the tarragonade!
That was in the deleted scenes.
Yeah.
There were a lot of those. We do now have so many different kinds of aids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to have another go at that?
No, I'm going to let it stand. It's true, though, isn't it? So, whatever you're doing, whether you're trying to pronounce the syllable chom
or trying to remove a fingernail from your tyre,
stop what you're doing and watch with us now.
Battleship Potemkin.
Yes! Hello and welcome back to Potemkin Go. Gotta hang 'em all. We are back after an hour and 16 minutes of exhilarating Soviet-era movie making.
Yep.
We're gonna go straight over to Ali for a summary of the events of the film.
Okay, so we start right on board the titular battleship.
Good use of titular.
Yep, I enjoyed it.
Eponymous.
Eponymous, also good. And some sailors are not very happy because they're being fed some rotten meat. And so we have an altercation about that. general unhappiness for quite some time. A really weedy-looking doctor saying, "It's fine," and then we see the maggots, and it's definitely not fine, but they have to eat it anyway. And so we kind of have this simmering resentment, and then the next day you have the captain coming along saying, "The meat was good, right? Everyone step forward who think it was good." And the officers all step forward, and the sailors are just like, no.
There's a couple of brown-nosing sailors there, isn't
Yeah.
Scabs.
there? Yeah.
And so the captain, reacts proportionately, is like, right, let's shoot all of those guys who didn't think the meat was all right.
Or hang them from the yard arm.
Yeah, that's right. So there's talk about hanging them, and then they don't decide to go for that. There's lots of arguing, and they decide to throw a sheet over them and shoot them instead.
Because it seems like sailors are like falcons. If you cover their heads, they stop moving.
They just go to sleep, and then you can shoot them.
It seems like a really ineffectual way to shoot people, though, when you can't see them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Well,
Like under one sheet. It's not like
maybe
a
it's
sailor.
just easier when you don't have to make eye contact.
There is that, but
like-
to know where to shoot is a bit more difficult.
That amorphous blob is attacking us.
Yeah.
Maybe that was like a Russian thing. If we throw a sheet over the whole group of you and you don't die, you can live. That's fine.
It's like a witch trial
Yeah.
using canvas.
Yeah.
It's so they don't know who's fired the shot and they don't know who's been shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just
Maybe.
put everything is covered in different amounts of canvas.
Yeah. My knowledge of Russian execution practice is surprisingly limited.
Yeah, I am surprised by that.
Yeah. So we have the sailors kind of saying to the execution squad, "You're not really going to shoot us, are you?" And they kind of go, maybe we will. I don't know. And so then it kind of turns into a massive melee between the officers and just the people trying to stop the sailors from escaping. Have a big fight on the ship, and eventually the sailors manage to take control. But not before we've had rather dramatic shooting of the initial guy who right early on said we shouldn't have to put up with this.
And not before the Admiral's hatch is tampered with.
Yes, that was definitely on the. There was lots of talk of the Admiral's hatch. And,
Yes.
Yeah.
You
And there
will
were-
not go in my hatch.
That's right. There were a lot of hurrahs and ballyhoos from us
Yeah.
while that was happening.
Yeah. So you've got this dead sailor guy. He's put on shore in a tent with a candle, and he has a bit of paper, I guess, saying he died because of some borscht, because of a spoon of borscht.
Which to me would have just...
Yeah.
I thought that would just be bad advertising
Yeah.
for the borscht maker.
No.
But I guess everyone else got that there was more of a kind of contextual thing over
Yes.
and above that.
Yeah, so you have lots of people from the town, Odessa, kind of filing past and going, yeah, that's not right, is it? So
I mean, so many people.
a lot of people.
There is nothing to do in Odessa.
Yeah, apparently, apart from seeing people who are dead.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get very, very fed up. They say, we shouldn't have to put up with this. And there's lots of shouting. And then, push comes to shove, and we have to have troops come in to, make people see sense, by which I mean gunning them down.
Yeah.
So we have the steps scene. And then we go back to the battleship, and the whole fleet is kind of bearing down on them. They kind of know it's on its way. They pass the night expecting it to come out. It doesn't, but it does turn up in the next morning. You have a big sort of confrontation, and you kind of think, right, the ship's in big trouble. You have lots of enemy ships or, regime ships. And then at the last minute, they decide actually they're gonna stand with the sailors on the Battleship Potemkin and not blow them out of the water. The end.
The end.
Well,
Hey.
hey, everyone's a good friend.
Yeah,
The ship comes really, really,
Really
close
close.
to the camera, and then it's over because
Yeah.
presumably they'd broken the camera.
broken the camera. That's the only one they had.
Yeah,
We
because
were going to shoot an epilogue, but we can't now.
it's
That was
Soviet
poor
Russia.
planning.
There's not
Poor-
a huge amount of resources
Cameras.
around.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The other one is in Vladivostok, and it will take weeks to get here.
and we've got to get this thing out for
Yeah.
propaganda purposes.
We do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I think the only thing I'd like to add is that the film itself has been segmented into 5 chapters.
Yeah, or acts even.
Yeah, almost
Yeah.
like a sort of operatic
Or, yeah,
production.
A bit like an
theatrical.
episode of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. It was separated into acts and
Oh,
had an
right.
epilogue.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's 5. And
And
it's
that had Russians in
essentially...
it. Sorry.
It did.
Um,
Ilyov Kuryakyn.
the sailors are sad. The sailors revolt. A man is dead. People run down some steps.
Atrocities ensue.
Atrocities ensue. And then it's sort of David versus Goliath, basically,
Yeah.
at the end there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but a great summary there, Ali.
Thank you very much.
Fantastically done. Who would like to start with the critical thought?
Well, I first thought it was really weird for me to be watching a silent film that wasn't a comedy,
Yeah.
because I don't think I've really seen any.
Was it
that
not a
aren't
comedy?
funny. Well, there were some funny bits in it, but I don't know if that was intentional.
No.
Mostly stuff about that Admiral's
Yeah.
hatch.
Yeah.
Normally, people with moustaches like that are denoted as comic characters, so you
Yeah.
kind of expect them to be doing
Yeah.
hilarious stuff, but they weren't.
No.
No, they
They
were
were
not.
being really oppressive, nasty people.
They were shooting little kids and
Oh,
trampling.
yeah.
Taking almost a voyeuristic amount of pleasure in how much they were going to stomp on that kid's head.
Oh, yeah, that was... Yeah, it was kind of all fun and games until the step scene, and then, yeah, it just got really, really horrible.
Yeah, it did. And it was banned in many countries for the perceived level of violence. In
Okay.
fact, it was banned in the UK for the longest amount of time of any film. Gosh.
Yeah, or was that just a pretext so that it's like, we don't want this revolutionary message getting out, so maybe
I don't
there's
know.
some
It
of
was
that as well.
It was quite graphic for the time. I was shocked, and
Yeah.
not obviously shocked. Oh my goodness, how gruesome! I've never seen anything so bad, because obviously I have. But just in the context of, I was not expecting
Yeah.
to see this in this film.
Yeah. And a lot of it is who the violence is to. It's like they kind of almost make a point of going, these are all the people who you definitely, shouldn't be victimizing. They can't really defend themselves, so you kind of have old women, children, disabled people, and the Tsarist troops are just going to shoot them because, that's what they're like.
It's amazingly clear that the pram down the stairs shot was definitely the influence for The Untouchables.
Yes, absolutely. That's Brian De Palma going,
I haven't seen that one, so I'll definitely have to check that out now.
it's a good one. It's a
Okay.
good
Yeah,
one.
Sean Connery plays an Irishman.
Who speaks like a Scotchman. A Scotchman.
Yeah, they love it when you call them that.
I bet.
That's
I'm not so happy about that.
oh my! There's two of you. Great this time.
Yeah.
It's a very famous sequence. That fourth sequence is, to my mind, the only thing I really knew about the film, and you can see why that is absolutely the most powerful bit. And just to marshal that many people, is pretty crazy, isn't it?
Well, throughout the film, there was a lot of just big crowd scenes.
And not actors, as
No.
the end credits make clear.
Yeah.
Actual sailors.
Yeah, we kind of, when we were watching it, we were saying, oh, those look like really quite convincing sailors. Well, there's a reason for that.
They were convincing,
sailors. Yeah.
There was a guy that looked like Channing Tatum,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
and another one that looked like a strongman from a circus.
Yes.
That was all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they all walk in that way. Whatever the frame rate of these old films are, it gives them a certain kind of jerky motion. that
Yeah,
is-
yeah.
Which makes me think hilarity will
Yes,
ensue
because you're
at any
so
moment.
used to seeing Charlie Chaplin kind of
Yeah.
walking in that sort of jaunty way.
Also, this whole film is shot through the Instagram vignette filter.
Oh, yes. Yeah, a lot of it is. Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting too.
Yeah. What about the ratio? That was new for me.
Yes, a boxy ratio.
Yeah.
Pre-CinemaScope and widescreen.
Yeah.
I think it's called Academy format. I think that might have been... I'm not sure that the Soviet cinema would call it Academy format.
Yeah.
4:3.
Yeah, 4:3. I mean, that used to be what TVs
Yeah.
were, guys.
Yeah,
Come
yeah.
on. That was how we used to live.
Yep.
Like when we had remote controls that were on a wire.
Yeah, and a little clicky dial. Oh, what? Do you remember clicky dials?
Yeah, vaguely.
There it goes.
Yeah.
I don't. I just hear people talking about them sometimes.
I lived in Devon, though, don't forget.
Okay, yeah, a little bit backward.
Jurassic Park's coming out there next week.
So
So.
I I wanted to talk about montage.
Okay.
There's montage in it. And obviously when we talk about montage, we sometimes think of training sequences or something like that.
80s pop tunes blaring.
They did have the steps out of Rocky in
Yeah.
it, basically.
They did, yeah. There's
No one was jogging up and down them.
I think that it was a big influence on Rocky, this movie, because they had montages and they had the steps that he runs up and they had a lot of meat.
Yeah.
They did.
They did.
If they just
hanging off
punched that
stuff
more.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely would have preferred to punch that meat than eat it.
Yes. I wouldn't really wanted to put
Punch
my hands
it
on it.
either, no. But
The
if
doctor
you had the
rubbed
choice...
his glasses all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine, see? That doctor was definitely a very interesting looking man.
I think he was trying to burn the maggots away
Yeah.
by reflecting
Yeah.
sunlight on them.
Maybe this will get him.
I was very interested about the montage thing. So this was a massive influence on all cinema after this point. And the thing that they did, what montage is, apparently, is just putting images next to each other. The content of each image isn't as important as the way that the sequence of images, once you put them together, what that conveys. So not each individual image, but how you lay them and put them out together allows you to elucidate your point of view, essentially. And this was so, you have these stormtrooper types in their crisp white tunics marching down the Odessa steps, everyone else fleeing, and you cut between the two in such a way that you convey your point, which is, these guys are shits, That's sort of the point. And so I just think that's quite interesting that gave birth to an entire cinematic technique that we see in every film.
Which we don't really question anymore, other than perhaps to go, do we really need to have a montage?
But what we call montage now is when it's incredibly overt, but actually all films are like that.
Yeah.
When you have something happen and then you cut to a reaction shot, that's using montage.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was worth mentioning and something that I didn't know before I saw this film. It's pretty astounding, really, that we're seeing that. So I just want to say how impressed I was with that, particularly that fourth sequence. I think it actually has lost very little of its power still, even though we are not buying into it in the way that I guess a lot of audiences did at the time.
Or were certainly meant to.
The Nazis really loved this. They did.
Yeah.
Just the power of it, not the message.
Not the specific film. Yeah, communism. Great.
Yeah, they weren't so keen on that.
No, but I can imagine them going, we can use this sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because that was one of the things I was quite apprehensive prior to watching this, going, I'm not sure how I feel about watching something that's potentially this propagandary. And it was not a subtle film.
It was not.
No.
It was almost, I would say, a little bit naive and childlike in just how heavy-handed it was.
Yeah,
for those things.
and sometimes it would show something and you'd kind of go, the symbolism there is pretty obvious. And then it would have on the title card, the thing that the thing is just symbolized. Just in case you missed the point that we were making, here's the point.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, yeah, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, it was very much like that.
Simmering water.
It's almost like the situation is building pressure.
Yes. Potentially it could
Boil over?
maybe? Yeah.
Yeah. But, they were creating all this stuff,
Yeah.
these techniques as they were doing them, which is cool.
Yeah.
It is hard to talk about because there isn't much characterization. Everyone's a cipher, a symbol for something.
The first guy who is the main mutineer, I wouldn't like to pronounce his name, but something like Valenchuk.
Yeah, something like that.
I thought, this will be like the protagonist throughout the film to an extent, and then he gets killed in the first act.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Which is very like Wes Craven's Scream, where we all thought Drew Barrymore was going to be the main part, but she gets stabbed up in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's very like that.
It is. I'm sure that was also what Wes Craven had in mind.
Battleship Potemkin, let's do that thing again. But there wasn't really like unless you have the Channing Tatum guy, really a protagonist particularly. It was just the crew were the protagonists.
Well, I guess it was the battleship.
Yeah.
But they do. It's not always on the battleship, though, is it? We're not.
No.
Or I would say debatably, the corpse of that guy he had a
Maybe.
whole.
He had an important
himself.
thing to do after he was dead in the next act.
It
But
had
yeah,
more screen time than when he was alive.
Absolutely, yeah.
Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but the fact that it was the crew rather than any particular individual as part of the whole kind of collectivist message.
Yeah, well,
maybe not though.
It's communism, isn't it?
Yeah.
One person shouldn't stand above the others.
Yeah, having a star would. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think you're going over the top with that one. That makes sense to me too.
Unless your name is Yosef, in which case you should definitely be in charge and be on posters.
Take that, Stalin.
That'll teach you. Massacre all those people. Get ridiculed by some Englishman years after you're dead.
Yeah, I mean this is the final straw for him.
Yeah,
I'm
and
sure.
don't come back.
Scorch, Stalin, you got burned.
Oh, and I know you were particularly interested in the flag.
Well, yeah, because
Have you got a flag?
Yeah, in this version,
What we saw,
whenever they raised the flag,
the red flag of
it was
revolution.
but it was red. It was in colour. Now, I wonder if that was originally painted onto the cells, because it's pretty important that we know it's a red flag.
Yeah.
Especially for Act 5.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then again, you could have just put up a card to say that it was the red flag.
Which is what they did for everything else.
So I'm afraid I don't know what originally happened. If if they just pulled a Schindler's List with this and went, we'll make it red.
But it definitely was, at least for me, the shonkiest thing in terms of just how it looked.
Oh, to me,
You thought it was...
I think it got worse. But the first time it happened, my brain sort of went,
Oh,
how is this happening?
yeah.
Like, they couldn't put sound on.
Yeah.
I couldn't until I went, oh yeah, they probably painted this out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if in this version it was painted. It looked like it was done with a computer.
Oh, I'm
but
sure
quite
it was
badly.
I think I wanted to maybe ape the style.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, because I wasn't expecting there to be any colour whatsoever. So it was kind of, oh, there's colour. And of course, it had to be the red flag.
But I wonder if this was an influence then on Schindler's List.
Maybe,
in terms of the girl in the red coat,
Yeah.
if that's what it was.
Spielberg is too big a student of cinema
Right.
for it not to be, if that is indeed something that happens all the time.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to mention was the music. I thought this was probably going to be involved because I know in other films Eisenstein worked with famous Russian composers. I don't know who it was, but it was really, really stirring. So sometimes the stirringness of the music kind of took you past the slightly shonkiness of bits of the visuals. I mean, I think the most notable bit, although there are lots of lovely bits of music, was when you had the battleship showdown at the end. It was really kind of percussive and clattery, and it just ratcheted up the tension. I mean, I noticed Owen, your foot was just kind of tapping away at the speed, and it's kind of like, yeah, that's definitely sort of affecting people on some level.
Bass player though, he can't help
Oh yes, yeah,
Yeah,
just got to
the
keep
rhythms just flow through me, man.
Yeah. Did you also notice that his fingers were twitching as he was like working out what his bass would be if he was playing along?
What this needs is a slap bass solo,
Yeah,
Seinfeld style.
that is
That would
exactly
have been a different
what it is.
film.
I love the pronunciation of Seinfeld because Chris always takes. I do admit, for some reason, it's called Seinfeld.
Yes,
But I often will pronounce it Seinfeld because I speak a bit of German.
Okay.
And Sein, the verb to be,
yeah.
is spelt the same way
Yeah.
as
Yes.
Sein. So it's a very language-heavy episode, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
I would love to see a version of this that is soundtracked like an episode of Seinfeld. Like, oh, let's go off and overthrow the captain.
Or an episode of Seinfeld in German. I think that would be, ja, ist Kramer. Ich bin auf kein Schlafen. Kein Schlafen. Very famous line from it that probably no one will get.
I'm on no sleep. No sleep.
No soup for you. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to do the soup Nazi, though,
Okay.
in the German.
So, permit me to display my ignorance once again, but this would have had music that was composed for it, and then sheet music would be printed, and musicians would play along at performances.
I assume so. When you said I display my ignorance, I'm kind of like, oh no, he's going to expect me to display some knowledge. Not sure. I certainly imagine it has less impact if it's somebody kind of just away at the piano. Well, that's worth mentioning, though. There was a scene where they had a fight in the captain or one of the officers' pianos, and they had the presence of mind to include the sort of discordant. Yeah, it's like, that's attention to detail. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not very musical myself, but I did notice that this was an excellent score. I mean, obviously, because there's nothing else to listen to, but it does really, it is epic and gives it a sense of scale that it might not otherwise have.
Yeah.
You do play the saxophone, though, or you used to, though, right?
Yeah, but I never have it. God, this whole episode is about things I'm awful at. So, you know how as you get older, you sort of just concentrate on the things that you are good at. But at school, you're forced to do things that you're not good at. So consequently, at school, I had to do sport, which I couldn't do. I had to do music, which I couldn't do. And I had to do languages, which I couldn't do. Now, I don't have to do any of those things, and I feel much better about myself.
Oh, so you were forced into the saxophone?
Yeah. No,
That sounds physically very painful.
If you're going to be forced into something, a tuba or a euphonium probably would be the best.
More spacious.
Yeah.
I can imagine you blasting out some Careless Whisper, though. Or, you
Baker
know that
Street.
the guy in Lost Boys, the saxophone player in that, with his like naked, oiled up torso.
That was very much what my life was like in Southend.
See, I knew you could do it.
Yes. Should we also mention Crazy Priest Guy?
Oh, goodness me. It was like 80s rock hairdryer priest.
He almost had someone with a fan on him, just off.
Yeah, it was kind of like he was an extra in Guns N' Roses, so you kind of have Slash next to him, and then there's Priest Guy.
Also, his cross was wickedly sharp, because when he dropped it, it goes twang into the ground.
Yeah. Of course, it was a silent film, so they didn't have the sound effect, but they totally should have had that on the cards that came up.
He looked like a kind of cross between Father Christmas and Rasputin
and ZZ Top.
Yes, yeah. And you think he dies, but then he when he falls down some stairs, and then he kind of creepily opens his eye, and then he decides, actually, I don't fancy this, and closes his eye again.
Because, as with everything in this film, he's an allegory for a larger concept, in this case, religion, and religion doesn't lay down and die easily.
It has no place in communism, right?
Well, it's forced below deck and then bludgeoned.
Yes.
Fantastic. We are now going to rate this seminal classic of international cinema, starting, I'm afraid, Ali, with you as the guest.
Am I supposed to do the thing where I kind of go, well, on the one hand, on the other hand?
Yeah, you chat it through in your head and then give it a rating.
Do you know, I think I'm just going to... It's a Schmassic.
Whoa!
Which pains me. I mean, that's not to say that it was horrible or terrible. I mean, it kind of zipped by. I mean, I don't want to say it was a fun film, but certainly the fact that you don't have lots of kind of Basil exposition, kind of back and forth, lots of people chatting in rooms, and that was kind of quite nice. You know, some really, really nice shots. I mean, he's definitely got that reputation for being able to frame a thing for a reason. Just kind of too heavy-handed for me. I mean, I'm not saying don't watch this. It's worth a watch, but it's not something I'm going to go, oh yeah, let's watch that again. So
bring it out of the party sort of thing.
Yeah, it's not like you definitely have to see this because it's so good. It's more like, this is kind of interesting. It's very different from what you'd normally watching. So it's still worth watching if you kind of have an interest, but not enough to say, oh yeah, definitely a classic.
Would you mind giving the final rating in Russian? I don't know what Schmassic is in Russian, but I'm sure you're working out.
Well, classic would just be classic.
So Schmassic. Cool, I'm really excited to hear this then.
Okay. Тогда я будем сказать, что фильм «Battleship Potemkin», как я сказал, для меня это Schmassic.
Amazing.
Oh, I'm just thinking of potentially people I know who are Russians just going, oh, Ali.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's all right. That's all
we
right.
had to, though,
Yeah,
didn't
of course.
I agree with most of the things you said. For me, it didn't fly by. I found that it was dragging a bit, and the main reason for that there were a lot of sequences that went on far longer than they needed to, but not in the way that some of the epics linger on moments or vistas to get you into the feel of the film. Just scenes where people were just kind of shuffling about aimlessly. But, fair enough, they probably weren't actors, but it's at that point that you call cut or you make an edit. But again, I realise this is early cinema and we've learnt a lot since then.
Yeah.
I found, on the positive side, a lot of the performances were very naturalistic. Now, I know that will come from the fact that the sailors were sailors and things like that, but they still had a camera on them, and they could have been very nervous and affected by that fact.
Yeah, like white coat syndrome, except...
There were some extremely melodramatic performances.
Oh, yeah.
But again,
yes.
This is one of these things where there was, I think, a very different language at the time in cinema, and there were things that were permissible that we now see as heavy-handed.
Yeah.
But we do, of course, now see them as heavy-handed.
Yeah.
I thought that the plot itself was very simplistic and drawn out. And while this is certainly culturally and historically significant, for me as a piece of entertainment or a piece of art, it doesn't do the job. It's a piece of propaganda. And while you could argue that any film is about putting across a viewpoint, I think that perhaps this film did its job very well. But for me, now watching it as a film in the same canon as things like Rear Window and Casablanca, it's just a curiosity, really. So I'm going to give it a Schmassic.
When I started watching, I felt like I was watching a museum piece rather than a vital, alive bit of art. And I think for a lot of this film's runtime, I still felt that way. I think overall, I would give it a Schmassic, just to say in advance.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say that the fourth chapter, the Odessa Steps sequence, is worthy of a classic rating. I know our rating system is far too simplistic to allow that, but I would say that that sequence in the middle there has a real power to it, and phenomenal filmmaking to marshal all of that and to invent an entire technique in order to put your point across is incredible. So that sequence, and that isn't flabby, I don't think. I think everything that's there is there for a reason. And the director really pushed it with the violence as well.
Yeah.
You do not see a child getting trampled very often in cinema. Even today, in Independence Day, they saved the dog, for heaven's sake. This shows a bravery that I think is absent from a lot of cinema. So I don't think any of us could give it anything other than a Schmassic, really, overall, in terms of what our podcast is about, which is this an incredible bit of entertainment now that...
Engaging.
Yeah. But that sequence in the middle, for me, is a classic. But the whole thing is of its time, and it is firmly of its time. And so, therefore, I do have to rate it in all good conscience as a Schmassic. Which does mean, I'm afraid, that... Oh, no, why am I saying this? I can't even say the name of the film. Owen, you say it.
Battleship Potemkin is rated as a Schmassic. Wow. I completely agree with you, actually, about that scene. And there are many shots in it that are brilliant, especially that closing shot where the ship comes right up to the camera, which I've no idea how it was done, really.
No. So it is. I think, as with everything in our podcast, you can't just take our rating and go, well, that's it then.
Yeah.
If any of this has piqued your interest, then absolutely. Or maybe even forward to chapter 4. There's bits in... is it 4? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And a bits in 5 as well that are pretty amazing.
I think this is a film for a cinephile or a Russophile. Is it Russophile? Is that
Yeah,
what you
that's
say?
the one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm glad I watched it, and
Yeah.
it doesn't. It's an hour and 16. It really isn't like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm never going to get that time back.
Those 4 hours that you pummeled me with communist propaganda.
Absolutely, and I think it's for me, having read a tiny bit about it, the importance of that cannot be overstated. Fantastic.
Before we end,
Yes,
we have rated the film, but there's another rating that we need to give, and that is on the treats from Russia.
Oh, right.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, are we going to give the same rating?
We don't need
Oh,
to
okay.
rate it, but
I'd like to.
We would like to rate
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Okay. Was it delicious or schmalicious?
I would like to take each snack,
Yeah.
though, because I have a different
Yeah.
rating
Right.
for
Okay.
each.
Okay.
So the chocolate that we had, I mean, chocolate's chocolate, right?
Yeah.
No, because this is Russian chocolate.
Yeah, it was a bit different,
Yeah.
wasn't it? It was a dark chocolate.
Mhm.
It was called,
It was called Gorky.
which means bitter.
Bitter,
I'm not actually translating that. Ali told me that earlier.
Oh, you don't say. I mean, you didn't just learn
Well,
Russian.
I'm
Yeah.
very familiar with Gorky Park, and I looked into the history, and I know it means bitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it had a really unique flavour.
In a good way, though, right?
Yeah, it was really pleasant, really
Yeah.
nice.
And you don't associate Russia as being massively great chocolate makers.
No, it wouldn't be the
so-
first thing that springs to mind.
I really liked the flavour. I thought the flavour was really interesting. It was, you could tell it was a different manufacturer to the kind of mass stuff that we get over here. It's very different from dairy milk or even a Bourneville. The texture was the one thing I thought let it down slightly.
Yeah,
it tended towards the chalky.
I've heard people say that before. I'm kind of just used to it at this point, so...
But the flavour was great.
Yeah.
So I will rate it delicious.
Okay. Well, with the chocolate, I liked it already. That was the thing I was most confident about bringing in, thinking, it's chocolate, it's difficult to mess up. I like it, I'm used to it, but I think you guys would enjoy it as well. And you did, so hey. Except I'm preempting your rating, but you've kind of...
I mean, it's
Kinda
clear.
so,
I just, it was a dark chocolate, so it's not going to be as creamy. So
No.
I agree with Chris there, but I understand the reasons why. So I will also give it a delicious.
Yeah.
Which means we
Yeah.
rate the Gorky chocolate as
Delicious.
fantastic. What was the next thing we had?
Okay, so we had the Beryozovy Sok, which is it's birch juice.
A little nugget of information there. If you read it to your English eyes, it looks like that second word is cock.
Yes. I don't notice that stuff anymore, but yeah.
Owen will always
Yeah,
notice
always noticed that.
stuff.
We also noticed that we had some ham during the film, except it wasn't. It was nam, which is to us. But yeah, it was like, ham? Why ham?
Slightly confused by the fact that there was a cute little piggy
Yeah.
running around.
Yes.
ship.
Yeah. Except I don't think it ended well for him.
No. Revolutions like that, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
always, there's always someone.
Always a
There's always a
victim.
victim. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
For me, the beach juice.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just call it sock?
Birch,
Yeah.
it was birch juice.
Is it?
Beach
I always get the
juice,
wrong one.
totally different flavour.
Yeah.
Sorry, the birch juice.
Yes.
I really love coconut water, and I drink a huge amount of it because I feel like
Yeah.
electrolytes are important to anyone. And this reminded me a little of that, but also there was a weird aftertaste that I
Okay.
didn't appreciate. Owen likened that to pear. I don't like pear myself. And also the other thing I really like about coconut water is that I know that it's very good for me.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether this was good for me at all or whether I was just drinking it because there were a lot of birch trees to get juice from.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of like how everything in Canada revolves around maple syrup,
Yeah, exactly.
We've got lots of this stuff. Let's use it.
So
which
from-
is delicious.
Yes. Yes. I can't see you spreading this on your pancakes somehow.
No, it would just, you'd get a very soggy,
Yeah.
vaguely pear-flavoured mess.
It's not the same experience.
So I am going to rate it schmalicious.
Oh. This is where you really need a middle rating, because it's not like it's
You're not allowed.
not allowed. Okay, I'm going to tactically vote as delicious because I don't want all of my your tactical votes.
Okay.
I don't want all of my Russian. Having said their classic film was a Schmassic film, I feel like I have to be diplomatic here and say it was more towards the delicious than the smalicious. So if I have to, and it certainly wasn't malicious.
Whoa, wordplay.
Nice. Boom.
Very Russian of you, I
Yes.
think. I liked it.
Mm.
Chris has explained how I felt about it
Yeah.
and what I thought it tasted like.
Sorry.
That's okay. But I question how natural it was and how good it is for you.
Mm.
So I did enjoy it, but it wasn't brilliant.
Yeah.
And in the way that this podcast is,
Yes.
doesn't mean
It's
it's
awful.
rubbish, but I will also rate it a schmalicious,
Okay.
which is
means
very
it's,
difficult to say.
Yes, which means we have to now say that it's
Delicious,
Schmalicious.
I really worry about the turn this show's taken.
yeah.
And-
We're just breaking new ground.
Yeah, and I feel like we had to really leave this one the best till last. Not
Yeah.
necessarily the best tasting, but the most obscure.
Yeah.
Which one was that?
This would be tarhun,
Which is?
which is a soft drink based on the herb tarragon.
Yeah, of course.
Because that's obviously, if you're going to choose a herb and make a soft drink out of it, that's the one you go
Yeah.
for.
We can't judge. We drink Mountain Dew,
Yeah.
like anything.
Which doesn't even pretend to be anything.
No.
It's got mountain essence. Don't
That's right.
ask too many questions.
And this looks like old school Mountain Dew, doesn't it?
It somehow looks greener.
Yeah, well, we called it Hulk juice because it's that shade of green,
Yeah.
pretty much.
It wouldn't look out of place in a production of Return to the Forbidden Planet. It would be, and it would froth as well.
It's somehow a Technicolor drink.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah. It's pretty amazing.
A delicious elixir.
And I have to say, I rather liked it. It was, it's a bit cream soda, a bit like weird chemicals that you like anyway. I would definitely give it a delicious.
I quite like it, but if I had to sort of tip the scale either way, which I have to do, clearly, I'd probably say it's schmalicious, if I can say that. Oh, I'll just say it's delicious because I can actually say that. Yes, so that's what we've decided. It's delicious.
Wow.
For purely reasons of convenience.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's like a last minute reprieve.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I have to say it's pretty sweet, but not overpoweringly sweet.
Yeah.
It is like cream soda. I would never in a million years say it was tarragon flavoured.
No.
Or
I would-
feed it to your kids.
No.
No, never. However, I'm not a huge fan because I don't really drink fizzy drinks.
Yeah.
But it is a fizzy drink. It does the job well. So I'm also going to give it a delicious.
Which means
Wow.
that the product
Tarhun.
gets a
Delicious.
fantastic.
So Tarhun is
Yeah.
the winner, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Of the three. Not that it's...
along with the chocolate.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I think the chocolate's the winner.
let's
was
be
the
realistic
best.
about this. Yeah.
Alistair, thank you very much. You've gone above and beyond by not only being a captivating guest, but also bringing us amazing treats, and therefore drawing a line in the sand for future guests to bring along thematic treats.
Oh, will this be part of the kind of like the sort of filtering process? What are you going to bring us?
Yep, that's right.
Doesn't
But-
sound good. Not coming. Sorry.
Absolutely, that's what's going to happen.
Okay. Well, you have to set the kind of bar somewhere.
And it'll be great because, when we do futuristic ones, who knows what
Oh,
we're
yeah.
going to get.
Yeah.
Probably some of that astronaut ice cream.
Wicked.
Yeah, that is going to be great.
Or cosmonaut ice cream, of course.
Yes,
Yes.
more like
Tarragon flavour.
Tarragon
Ice cream.
flavour.
Is there anything you mentioned a blog? Would you
Oh,
like
yes.
to plug
Yeah.
that?
Yes, I would. So it's good that you mentioned the word Russophiles earlier. My website is called Russophiles Unite, but it's not so wildly successful that it has its complete own domain name. It's russophilesUnite.wix.com. And I have a couple of Twitter handles because I'm greedy. I have RussophilesU And then I have just a regular one for me, which is Alistair_Pitts. So you can have both of those if you should so desire.
How would you spell Russophile?
Russophile. RUSSOPHILES.
Great stuff. Just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Otherwise, no one would be able to find you.
No, which would be sad.
Yeah. Well, I've very much enjoyed this one. It has been very different.
Yes.
That was rather great. That's not a phrase. Rather great.
It is now. How
Okay.
about that? Yeah, I've really enjoyed this. You've been a fantastic and fascinating guest, Ali. So thank you very much for coming along.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And thanks for all your treats that you brought.
Oh, more than welcome.
Although, Ali, have you noticed how Owen always kind of treats us a little bit without respect and keeps kind of oppressing us?
Yes, we should overthrow him.
Yeah.
If I've learned anything from the film that we watched,
It's
that was
a good
it.
idea.
Yeah.
Listen, like this
Owen,
podcast.
give me your microphone.
No,
Give me your microphone.
no, that's the end. Hey!
You've been listening to Classic Schmassic with Chris and Owen.
And we're back. I do hope you enjoyed that episode of Classic Schmassic with Chris Mead and Owen Choules. You can find more about Chris and his work as an improv performer and teacher at chrismead.co. That's CHRISMEAD.co. Owen, on the other hand, has been a guest on shows including As If, a Minute-by-Minute Clueless podcast, and the 4 Weddings and a Funeral episode of the brilliant Falling in Love Montage. As you'll already know if you caught the bonus episode I released at the end of September, I'm not currently able to record new regular episodes of Russophiles Unite at the moment, but I do hope to be able to revive the podcast properly when circumstances allow. In the meantime, I'll continue to release bonus episodes every so often, so don't unsubscribe from this feed just yet, and if you're not already subscribed, why not do that right now so you don't miss out when I have new stuff to share with you. If you've enjoyed what I've been doing with Russophiles Unite over the last half-decade, the best thing you can do to support it is to let other film fans in your life know that it exists. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can make a one-off donation at ko-fi.com/Russophilesunite. That's ko-fi/Russophilesunite. If that's not an option right now, or if you understandably feel a bit icky about spending money on something connected with Russian culture, then no worries, totally understand. Whether this is your first episode of Russophiles Unite, a Russian and Soviet movie podcast, or whether you've been listening to us for years, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show and the films we've covered on here. You can find Russophiles Unite on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter too, assuming Twitter is still a thing by the time you listen to this, or you can email at russphilesunite@gmail.com. If you're curious about what films I've been watching lately, you can also follow me on Letterboxd. My username on there is Ali_, that's ALLY_. Thank you so much for listening, and das vidanya, folks.